Hi, I'm Courtney Davis from theempoweredwoman.ca. In this video, I'm going to share with you how to self-pleasure in a really powerful and fulfilling way, so that your self-pleasure is not only something that you look forward to and that you really enjoy, but it's also something that helps you to unleash and live your full potential in life. So the first thing I want to talk about is why self-pleasure is so powerful. The second thing I'm going to talk about is why people, and especially women, encounter so much resistance against self-pleasure and why they have a really hard time getting motivated to pleasure themselves. And the third thing I'm going to talk about is exactly how to self-pleasure in a way that's really fulfilling and powerful. I believe self-pleasure to be the most powerful, untapped personal practice that exists. So we embrace all of these personal practices now in our society, like yoga and meditation, visualization, eating healthy, exercise, whatever it may be. There's this level of acceptance and encouragement around these practices because we now understand how powerful they are. I believe self-pleasure is right alongside these practices in terms of its ability to help us be our best selves and help us really tap into and unleash our full potential. The first reason being that it helps us to become reconnected to our bodies. And so when you think about how detrimental it is that so many women and men as well are really dissociated from their bodies. They're truly, in a state where they don't love their bodies. They aren't able to fully feel and exist and inhabit their bodies in a present way because they're so focused on what their body needs to look like or how it should be for the external world. And so self-pleasure really shifts that relationship. It helps you to start relating to your body and yourself in an entirely different way because it gets you focused on how your body feels as opposed to how your body looks. So what I experience and what I continue to see other women experience as they embrace self-pleasure as being a daily important part of their lives is that their confidence increases, their body image improves, and they have this enhanced ability to just show up as their full selves. They aren't sort of hiding behind these walls or being focused on how they need to show up to please other people. They can really just inhabit their true selves and give their gifts to the world in an entirely new, more powerful way. Another reason self-pleasure is so powerful is because it allows us to practice presence with ourselves and just in general. So just like something like yoga, where it helps us to practice being present and often helps us to experience more gratitude and fulfillment in life because of that presence, self-pleasure can work in the same way. And at the same time that you're taking the time to be present with yourself, you start to develop greater self-awareness because you're just taking the time to slow down and tune into what you're really feeling. So that includes your emotions, the physical sensations, the thoughts. In its own way, self-pleasure, if done properly, is actually quite meditative. In addition, self-pleasure will help you bring your hormones into balance. So when you're regularly experiencing deep, fulfilling pleasure, your hormones and your neurotransmitters begin to regulate themselves in such a way that you will literally experience more motivation, more confidence, just a greater sense of well-being, and all of the bodily processes that take place as a woman throughout our monthly cycle, even fertility, these things start to improve for the better because of the hormone balancing benefits of pleasure. And while I could continue to go on and on and on about all the different more specific benefits of self-pleasure, I think the number one powerful benefit that I want to emphasize is self-permission. So in the act of giving yourself permission to touch yourself, to receive pleasure, to do what feels really, really good, that self-permission starts to translate into the rest of your life. For me personally, and I'm sure those that know me and have watched my own evolution, the more that I've given myself permission through self-pleasure, the more I give myself permission to express myself in life, to be seen, and to really live out my gifts and purpose. So especially if you find that you are the people-pleasing type, or you're always sort of worried about what you should be doing, self-pleasure is an amazing way to shift that dynamic and step into a place of self-permission where you really get to own your decisions and how you feel and how you go about your life. Yet, despite these benefits and despite the fact that self-pleasure is meant to be pleasurable and you would think that we feel motivated to do it, many people, and especially women, aren't self-pleasuring. They don't have the desire, they don't feel motivated, they feel resistance to the idea of self-pleasuring. So why is that? The first and most obvious reason is because of sexual shame. So if you think back to when you were a young child, I know for myself included, there was this moment when I remember I started to explore my body and I started to touch myself. I remember touching my vagina and having my parents look at me and make a comment in a way that I knew that it was wrong, or it wasn't okay for me to be doing what I was doing. And a lot of times, even if we don't receive a direct comment or remark about the way that we're touching our body or being sexual, we can just sort of unconsciously pick up the energy from those around us and how they respond to that behavior. So that energy imprints itself on us and causes us to feel that it's not okay to pleasure ourselves. It's not okay to be sexual, to enjoy our own bodies. And then we carry those beliefs with us as we go throughout the rest of our lives. So when women start to self-pleasure themselves in a really explorative, gentle, self-loving way, they'll often find that they're confronted with all of this shame and this suppression that's been stored in their bodies. And in giving themselves permission to start touching themselves, they often have to start experiencing and feeling and releasing a lot of intense emotion. I know for me, even though I sort of masturbated using a vibrator and having quick clitoral orgasms for a long time, when I started to self-pleasure in a way that I'm going to teach you in this video, I had a lot come up. I often cried, I even screamed, because I could just feel how much I had been suppressing and not giving myself permission to really be who I am and enjoy my own body. So this whole issue of sexual shame is really quite massive and heavy and deserves a video all on its own. But I want to talk about another reason that women often feel resistant or not motivated to self-pleasure, and that is because of the expectations they have. So they expect that self-pleasure needs to look a certain way, that they should feel a certain way while they're self-pleasuring, and often they also expect that it needs to come with the goal of orgasm. However, these expectations are ultimately what is killing your desire and your motivation and your ability to experience self-pleasure as fully and powerfully as possible. So the first thing you need to do is completely throw out all of the ideas and expectations around what your self-pleasure should or could look like, and tune back into being present with yourself. So even for myself, despite the fact that I've been self-pleasuring in this more explorative, deeper, transformative way for years, I'll occasionally encounter this resistance where I'm feeling like I don't really want to self-pleasure and I don't know why. And then if I really tune into it, it's because I have an expectation. I think that my self-pleasure needs to look like something or be a certain way. And if I don't feel like making that happen, then of course I'm not going to feel like self-pleasuring. So this is the antidote. When you don't feel motivated or you don't desire to pleasure yourself, it comes back to self-permission. And in that moment, are you really giving yourself permission to give yourself what you deeply need and want? For example, your self-pleasure can literally just be you holding yourself in stillness. It doesn't need to be focused on the genitals. It doesn't need to be really vigorous, intense stimulation. It can just be you holding yourself in total silence and stillness and breathing and feeling your body. This radical self-permission is what allows your self-pleasure practice to become much more deeply fulfilling and powerful. And now I'm going to share with you how to self-pleasure in a really powerful and fulfilling way. So the first thing, in addition to giving yourself this really radical self-permission to feel into and give yourself whatever it is that you're deeply craving and needing, is to remove the goal of orgasm. And so this can be super challenging. It seems counterintuitive because an orgasm is obviously extremely pleasurable. It's part of what can often motivate people to self-pleasure. But I promise you, you will deepen your pleasure capacity and you will start experiencing deeper, more fulfilling, life-changing orgasms if you can let go of the goal to get there. The reason being that profound pleasure and orgasms actually arise from a deep sense of presence. And if you're attached to an outcome or you're striving for orgasm, even just on like a subtle level, you're getting in the way of your ability to fully be present with yourself. So in addition to consciously letting go of the goal and the focus in your mind on getting to orgasm, you can start to cultivate more presence in your body by bringing your awareness to your breath and the subtle sensations that you feel. So just like with meditation, for example, this will ebb and flow, and you'll find that at certain times it's easier to be fully present and tuned into your body and the sensations and your breath, and other times you're going to be caught more in your head and your thoughts, and that's okay. Just allow that to pass, allow yourself to flow through it, and just trust that if not this time, probably next time will, for whatever reason, be much easier to remain present. The other key, and this will actually help you to become more present in your self-pleasure, is to slow down. So obviously, especially men are very used to sort of this rigorous, high intensity, high stimulation form of masturbation in order to get off and experience ejaculation. And with women, most women are habitualized to really intense stimulation by using their hand or a vibrator. But more fulfilling, powerful, life-changing self-pleasure will come about when you are able to slow down with yourself. At the same time, consciously focus on relaxing your body. So breathe super deep, visualize your sexual energy spreading throughout your body, and allow your breath to become a barometer. So as you're pleasuring yourself, if you feel that you're starting to tense your body and your breathing becomes quicker, then let that be a reminder to relax and slow down and become present once again. The more you can relax and the deeper you can breathe as your pleasure is building, the more expansive your pleasure and your orgasms will become. The next thing I want you to focus on is whole body stimulation. So remove the excessive focus on the genitals, whether that's your cock or your vagina. And of course you can progress to that, work up to that, but especially at the beginning, just start by really massaging and touching and feeling your entire body, allowing yourself to drop into a more present and relaxed state. And so, especially for women, I find because we can be so wound up, it's hard to really drop in and allow ourselves to relax at the beginning of self-pleasure. So feel free to just take a couple moments, place a hand on your heart, place one hand on your yoni, close your eyes, take some deep breaths, and maybe even repeat an affirmation to yourself. So for me, when I feel really wound up and I want to give myself permission to relax and receive, I will say something like, "It is okay for me to receive. I deserve pleasure. I am so worthy of this. It is okay to relax and let go." So at this point, we're focused on slowing down, massaging and connecting with our entire body, breathing deeply, relaxing, and letting go of the goal of orgasm. And then of course, you're going to progress, most likely if it feels right for you, to massaging and pleasuring your genitals. But the key thing here is to continue to be present. So don't get caught up in sort of falling into familiarity or stimulating yourself in a way that you know just gets you to orgasm. Rather, stay present, keep exploring, stay gentle, and allow yourself to tune deeper and deeper into the subtle sensations. For women, the most powerful piece of advice I can give you when it comes to your self-pleasure is to massage and touch yourself internally. There is so much cultural emphasis on the clitoris as being the be-all, end-all when it comes to female sexual pleasure, and that is a huge disservice to women. There is so much power and potential that you can unlock in the inside of your vagina. And while I'm not going to go into that in complete detail in this video, I talk a lot about it and I educate on it. I walk you through the process in my online course for women, Viva La Vagina, and I also have some other videos on it as well that you can check out. But as often as possible to really tap into your potential and unleash your power in life, stimulate and connect to yourself internally. And you can do this just with your fingers, but one thing that I found that made it really easy and actually fun to transition to paying much more attention to the inside of my vagina was using really beautiful pleasure wands. So I always found that trying to pleasure myself internally with my fingers was very strenuous and uncomfortable, and that was a huge obstacle and reason as to why I didn't self-pleasure myself internally for a long time. However, when I was introduced to crystal pleasure wands, that totally changed for me. So using my crystal pleasure wand became something that I really look forward to and still do to this day. And it made the whole idea of exploring and pleasuring the inside of my vagina feel so much more special and exciting. And so it doesn't have to be a crystal pleasure wand. It can really just be any body safe toy that really excites you and makes the idea of internal exploration and pleasure more enticing for you. Another one that I really love is this Enjoy Pure wand. So this is my all-time all-time favorite G-spot toy. And honestly, when I went through the journey of trying to experience more G-spot pleasure and G-spot orgasm, I became so frustrated by all of the sort of lackluster, disappointing toys until I finally found this one, and now I truly look forward to it. However, that's all I'm going to say about sex toys in this video. You can check out some of my other videos if you want to learn more specifically about which toys I use for which purposes and why I use them. However, the main thing that I want to emphasize is that if having a really gorgeous wand of some sort is what it takes for you to feel more comfortable and excited about exploring yourself internally, then I definitely encourage you to do that. For men, because I've definitely not forgotten about you, internal, so anal stimulation for you as well is extremely powerful and pleasurable. There's an entire universe of pleasure available to you in there. So if you have a lot of resistance to the idea of being penetrated anally by yourself or with another person, I get it. It's quite prevalent in our culture currently to have resistance to that idea. I think it really stems oftentimes from this homophobic culture that we've grown up with. But even on that note, just because you're open to the idea of wanting to explore your internal pleasure, that doesn't make you gay. It just makes you a human who wants to experience their full pleasure potential, and I believe that is your birthright. The last key that I have for you when it comes to self-pleasuring yourself in a way that is more deeply fulfilling and powerful is to allow yourself to express. So allow yourself to make sounds, moans and groans, or even shouting, screaming, crying, whatever it may be. The more that you can give yourself permission to express and make sounds while you're pleasuring yourself, the more pleasure you will actually experience. The final comments that I want to leave you with on this video are that quality is more important than quantity when it comes to masturbation. I often have a lot of people ask me if the number of times that they are masturbating in a day is healthy. And my answer is that it would depend on how you're masturbating. So if you're masturbating in a way that's really tension-based and like striving to get to an orgasm and having that energetic release, whether that's through a clitoral orgasm or ejaculation, then I would say that to be masturbating in that way multiple times a day could actually be energetically depleting yourself. However, if you are foregoing clitoral orgasms or foregoing ejaculatory orgasms and really just focusing on revving up and spreading and circulating your sexual energy, I would say that the more time you are spending on that in a day, the better. So I hope that you found some insight and some inspiration around self-pleasure from this video. And the final reminder I will leave you with is that your self-pleasure is all about you. So it's about doing what feels best for you and giving yourself that permission. Thank you so much for watching. If you enjoyed the video, please like it and subscribe, maybe share with your friends. As well, check out my other offerings. So at theempoweredwoman.ca, you can explore my women's e-course, Viva La Vagina, where I take women through an in-depth 4-week journey to fully unleash their sexual power and pleasure. On my site, you will also find more information and resources about the gorgeous pleasure wands that I sell, how to use them, what you use them for, and so on. So make sure to head over and check that out.